Welcome to the Brute Strength Podcast, bringing you worldwide experts from all areas of health and fitness. We cover training, nutrition, coaching, and mindset. Welcome your host, strength and conditioning coach, 2012 and 2013 CrossFit Games champ, Michael Cazue. Mind, body, brute.
Hey, and welcome back. My name is Mike Cazue, and you're listening to the Brute Strength Podcast. This week's guest is named Elliott Hulse. He's the owner of Strength Camp, which is a gym and a number of affiliates. He has 17 locations around the world. In college, I watched a shitload of Elliott's videos. He's really well known as a YouTube superstar, and I remember watching his videos in college, always being so envious of how he spoke. He was always super confident, spoke directly and clearly on a ton of different topics, ranging from training, nutrition, mindset, sexuality, relationships, productivity, you name it. He would talk about it and just crush it. He would dance around in some videos, make a bunch of funny noises, and he always just did it with such confidence. And I was always so envious of that. He's got 2 million plus YouTube subscribers. He's got videos like When Bodybuilding Meets Strongman with over 19 million views, Stop Using Heavy Dumbbells with over 4 million views, and The Only 4 Exercises You Need to Grow Stronger, also with over 4 million views. On the show, we talk about first how he built the confidence that he has and what it was like in his early days of making videos. We talk about his mentor, Paul Chek, which is one of the top strength and conditioning experts of all time, and how he learned the holistic model of training from Paul, where they treat the person as a whole rather than just physically. We talk about the experience he had living in his in-laws' basement when he had a newborn baby and how he bounced out of it, something he calls active meditation to release tension in your body, how to become more masculine, how to become more feminine, and the importance of cultivating both in your life. And in general, he just tells a bunch of cool stories. Elliott is a fascinating human being, just living the shit out of life, and I learned a ton from him on this show. Before we get started, if you haven't done so already and you're a regular listener of the show, please head to iTunes and leave me a quick review. Enjoy the show. Elliott Hulse, man, it is such an honor to be here with you. As I was telling you before we started, I've been watching your videos for so many years, and it's a little bit surreal to be talking to you today. So thank you so much for your time, and I'm really looking forward to this.
Cool, man. Well, thank you for having me.
So in general, you're a really incredible example of what I think a man can be. You speak directly and confidently into the camera. You jump around constantly. You're dancing, making noises, and just you emit just pure courage. And throughout this episode, I would love to know a little bit about where you came from and how you got to become this person that you are today. Ideally, talk about some of the struggles and the triumphs so that some other guys and gals like myself can learn from you. And you're best known nowadays for your presence on YouTube, where you have over 2 million subscribers. And again, you're one of the most confident and clearly speaking people I've ever met. I'm curious, what were your earliest videos like, if you can remember exactly? And particularly, was there any funny or embarrassing moments in that first year, say?
Well, my earliest videos were designed specifically to get people to join Strength Camp, which was my fitness training service that I did in the parks out of the back of my van, and then ultimately my gym. So it was all about getting testimonials and showing the guys working out so that they would share it with their friends, and I'd get more people in my gym. When I realized that people worldwide were watching these videos, as I get comments and stuff, that it would be fun to answer people's questions. And so I began I created my Yo Elliott series, which was when my YouTube videos started becoming popular, where I just answered people's questions. And as far as, funny or, embarrassing circumstances or situations early on, I think it's just interesting to watch for me to watch my own personal evolution over the years. So even my delivery was different. maybe you could say raw or unpolished or just like rookie amateur in the beginning. He's yelling a lot, and because I didn't have a microphone. And so over the years, with practice and repetition, just like with training and anything else that we do, it's fun to watch how I just got better at doing it. And it's a performance. It's an art, just like anything else. I wasn't born making awesome YouTube videos. I just practiced it long enough that I got good at it.
I've heard you talk about before that you were kind of born really enthusiastic, right? If you watch any of your videos anywhere, you're just so vibrant and energetic. But was there ever any like fear associated with making these videos in the beginning where you were just afraid of what people might think or if they would like the videos? Was any of that present for you in the early days?
Well, here's the thing. Yeah, you mentioned earlier about my courage and my fearlessness in front of the camera. That's the way I've been in life. And I can tell you, as a kid, I got into a lot of trouble. I got in a ton of trouble because I don't think before I act. And a lot of times I don't think before I speak. I'm just spontaneous. That led me to being very successful as a YouTuber, but it also caused me to experience a lot of backlash. And so while there was no fear in the beginning, I developed a fear because people started reacting poorly to me because I say some pretty outrageous things, meaning like I'm not afraid to go against the grain. I'm not afraid to look ridiculous. My naivete had me believe that everyone's just going to love me. A lot of people did. But then, quite frankly, there was just a handful of people that didn't like me. And I think at some point I let that derail me, and fear came in later. And I'm grateful for it because it taught me boundaries. It taught me how to be an artist, a real artist. A real artist, like a musician, learns the notes and learns the instrument before he can just forget all that shit and play. Me, I just jumped out of the frying pan and just started going. Right. When I experienced a few obstacles and people getting in my way, it forced me to slow down and think about what I'm going to say. And I think I know that's been beneficial to me in my evolution.
So your first mentor ever was Paul Chek, and kind of serendipitously, I told you before the show, I interviewed JP Sears yesterday, who was also a mentee of Paul Chek. So I know you know. Paul is one of the top strength and conditioning professionals in probably the history of that discipline, and he's considered a holistic practitioner. He deals with people on a physical, mental, emotional, energetically, even spiritual way. And the way that I see you is the exact same way. You're teaching people how to improve their lives in every single area of their life. So first off, how did your relationship with Paul start?
I graduated from college and I did an internship with a guy who was a level 3 Czech practitioner, and his knowledge of biomechanics and physiology was just miles ahead of anybody I had worked with or went to school with or had been coached by. And he was insistent that I watch these videos, or VHS videos back at the time. Yeah, so I was watching these videos of Paul Chek, and I realized that this man is in a category by himself. So although he was teaching strength, strength and conditioning, he went as far as to speak about the physiology of an individual. I've never heard a strength and conditioning coach talk about digestive health. They were just talking about muscles and movement. Beyond that, he was willing to go as far as to speak about the spiritual aspects of becoming a better athlete or the strongest version of yourself. So for me, that made perfect sense. I've always been a conglomeration of many different things. Like I was mentioning earlier, that I am of multiple races. I played college football and I was the only guy in the league to play offense and defense. I like to bring together divergent parts. I like to bring what seems like opposites together in a whole. And Paul was the first person that I saw do that in a professional way. And so I was deeply inspired by him.
So you were 22 years old at that time?
Yeah, probably about 22.
And had you started strength camp already?
No, I was still living in New York, and I was recently married, and I didn't even have a family yet, so I was very young.
Gotcha. So you start working with this level 3 practitioner. Where do you go from there? What do you do as a strength and conditioning coach?
Well, I didn't stay there very long. A year or two later, my wife and we got pregnant, and my parents moved to Florida, and I decided to move down to Florida. And by that point, I was confident and cocky enough
Nice.
in my ability to to get great results that I became a top trainer at the gym that I started at. And so Paul was really a springboard for my confidence in my own ability. And then, as you know, the years went on, I continued to study his work. I remember first moving down here and writing in my goal journal that one day I will hire Paul to be my consultant, my coach. Like I'm going to get coaching from the guy. And it's so funny, like my entire life, how all these things come true. It's just a matter of timing. I guess maybe 10, 11 years later, he invites me to be his client. He invites me, my brother, to his house and to work with him. And then he says, I've got an opening. I'd love to have you as a client. And it was like, man, I wrote down the goal. It's funny how this always works out this way. I wrote down the goal. I believed in it. And then I just forgot about it. And then it just, in the most serendipitous but unpushing, unneedy way, it comes to fruition.
Wow. So I believe I've heard you talk about this period of your life where you moved. Your wife had just gotten pregnant with her first baby, and I think you moved in with your in-laws into their basement. Is that correct?
Yep.
What was that like?
Well, it wasn't my idea of living a successful life. And of course, I was young, but I knew that given the right circumstances, I could do a lot better. So that's why we were willing to take the risk of moving down to Florida, where I had absolutely no connections.
Mm-hmm.
It was actually just an opportunity to start fresh. That being where I was in that time was perfect because it's like nighttime. Like nighttime is perfect, but you know that the sun is going to rise again soon, so you don't curse the darkness. So in retrospect, and even at the time, I knew that things could only go up from there, and it sure did. I got onto a rocket ship after that when I got down to Florida, and my life has just skyrocketed since then.
I think I've heard you talk about that's when you discovered active meditation, and I haven't practiced it much myself, but I'm really fascinated with it. Can you explain what that is and how you do it?
Well, it was my brother who introduced me to the work of a man named Osho, who's an Indian mystic. And Osho's words are rebellious. And I think that's why I was attracted to him.
Mm-hmm.
He's totally unconventional in his spirituality. And he would constantly like contradict himself and piss people off. To me, that's like the ultimate. I'm like, that guy loves himself, and I want to know more about what he's doing. So his work is brilliant and has inspired me. But one of the things, amongst many others, that he did, which was very different, was he believed that meditation had to start with the body. It wasn't this whole thing where we sit down and numb the body and allow the mind to quiet. It was a matter of getting into a flow is a big part of it. Like if you ever watch like an athlete who is in the zone, that is like a moving meditation. Or if you've ever danced or watched anybody dance, and it's almost like the dancer disappears and the dance takes over. This is a state of mind-body flow, total cohesion. And as an athlete, when I read about active meditation and its ability to use the body to activate states of cohesion within the mind, I was attracted to it right away. I knew that this was truth. So I was fortunate enough to live nearby someone who lived with Osho in the 80s for many years, and she was a practitioner of dynamic meditation, and I took her workshop, and it was incredible. And to this day, that's what we do at my live events. I teach a lot of Osho active meditation.
Is it? Yeah. Can you tell us like the structure of a dynamic meditation?
Well, I'll give you one that's pretty simple that most people can do, and it's called gibberish. And the whole idea is that there's a lot that we want to say that we just can't say, and for our entire lives. You can't curse your mom out when she tells you can't have the Nintendo or whatever, and your teacher and your girlfriend, all these repressed expressions not only don't get the opportunity to be expressed, but they get trapped in the body. They don't dissipate.
Mm-hmm.
They grow. And so one of the ways to begin to dissipate that, or to let off the steam and to get it out of the body, is with a gibberish meditation, where you literally walk around for 20 minutes just saying absolutely nothing but expressing yourself fully. The thing is that you can't be in linear thinking with that type of non-linear behavior. So another way to get into that non-linear state is with erratic dancing. So the whole idea is that we want to go anti-structure. Osho was heavily influenced by Tantra, and Tantra is a lot of anti-structure. So anytime that you can get into an anti-structure, you're breaking the bonds of ego. Ego can't be there, can't survive in an environment where there's pure ridiculousness. So if you're just speaking ridiculousness and making ridiculous faces with your face and moving around and doing and acting purposefully acting crazy, the ego it runs away and dissolves and cannot be present. And in that is the availability to reach states of flow or cohesion.
The term embodiment comes to mind as well, especially with the movement one, right? One thing that is so amazing about dance is exactly what you described. There's no thinking involved. You just get lost in the movement, and it's such a physical release. We have so many moments throughout the day where we have maybe we don't say something, like somebody annoys us or irritates us, and we don't say anything about it, and it just gets bottled up, and all of these emotions kind of get stuck in our body. And things like that, like exercise, like playing sport, all help release those emotions. I love that.
They do help. The thing is with exercises, particularly the type of exercise we do, like weight training and stuff, it's very linear. So you can the ego loves patterns. The ego likes knowing what's next and what to do. As a trainer, people are wanting to know how to do it, what to do next, how many should I do? They're all caught up in their heads. With Tantra, with active meditation, there's no thinking. In fact, if you think you're doing it right, that's when you're absolutely wrong.
There is no right.
Right.
So many people are focused on fixing things that are broken in the world and trying to figure out why they aren't working. And I've heard you speak on some podcast about your focus on simply working towards things that do work, not putting your attention on fixing the things that are broken, but just working towards things that do work. And you've called yourself a spark. What's the difference here? How are those two things distinct, and why do you think this way?
Well, it's all about where you focus your attention. If you're focusing your attention on the problem, you can't get to the solution because you're not receptive. You're not able to receive it because you're focused on the lack. You're focused on the problem. You're focused on the challenge. The challenge comes with the answer. The question comes with the answer. But by being in the vibration of the question, you can't receive the answer. So it's really a matter of turning your attention quickly away from the problem and then opening yourself up to receive the answer. I'm answer focused. I'm alchemy focused. I'm love focused. I'm advancing focused. The minute there's a challenge, I look at it. Or the minute there's a gray cloud, I look for the silver lining. Eternal optimism, to the point where I don't even want to say pathological, because I think people who are pessimists are the pathological ones. I look at every situation and instantly see the benefit in it, or look for it, or transmutate it in my own mind, meaning give myself a resourceful perspective on it. The faster I can do that, the faster the solution is presented to me.
So it seems like the really important piece of this is that you immediately, or as quickly as possible, direct your action towards a solution rather than wasting a lot of time focusing on a problem.
Well, it's not even the action, because every action comes from a still point. And the still point is far more important than what you do. Ralph Waldo Emerson says every action is measured by the sentiment from which it proceeds. Most people are steeped in activity. They're not even doing action. There's a difference between action and activity. Action comes from stillness. Activity comes from a restless mind. So really it's activity. But the very first place to begin with that transmutative process is with the still point, your emotions. How are you feeling right now? If you're still trapped in anxiety and fear, no matter what you do now is going to be tainted by that anxiety and fear. So if you're having a quote unquote problem, the first place to go is to relieve yourself of the emotional baggage associated with the problem. Go do something that feels good. I tell people, go for a walk, get your mind off of it. We want to do the fixing of the problem, but really the fixing of the problem comes to us when we choose to disentangle ourselves with the negative emotions. It's about how you feel.
So let's take public speaking, for instance. If I'm feeling, I'm just terrified of getting up in front of a crowd, do you think by just taking a walk, I'm going to get rid of all of that fear before I get up on stage?
Well, another Emerson quote is to do the thing you fear, and the death of fear is certain. So a lot of times we get to stare it in its face. Earlier we spoke about emotions and suppressing emotions, and how by not honoring them, it becomes a sickness in our body. Well, it's the same thing here. It's not may not be a sickness in your body, meaning that you're holding the emotions down, but you're not proceeding in your life because you're not willing to look at that fear. You're not willing to confront that fear. You're not willing to have that fear. The fear is okay. If you have a fear of public speaking, that's okay. I've heard some things about, like, some of the greatest actors of all time were still throwing up before they went on stage, but that didn't stop them. They did the thing that they fear, and the death of fear, it was inevitable. So it's really not a matter of even controlling our emotions. It's a matter of honoring our emotions, but doing the right thing anyway.
Enjoying this episode? Hit subscribe. We have more amazing content for you every single week.
This episode is brought to you by ButcherBox. ButcherBox is an online meat subscription service that sends you some of the best meat on the planet right to your doorstep. I made a decision this year to start choosing quality over quantity, and that's in terms of movement, in terms of relationships, and in terms of food. I know that I'm going to eat meat every single day, so I made the decision to start using ButcherBox myself because they send you the highest quality meat you can possibly find. It's all 100% grass raised and finished meat. They're pasture raised animals as well as antibiotic free. Here are some of the benefits that you get from eating grass-fed meat. So first off, it has higher levels of vitamins. There's more protein per ounce than in conventional meat. And some of the biggest ones are that it reduces cellular inflammation and improves brain function, and then it helps you get nutrients into your cells better. It also increases something called CLA. Increased CLA is going to improve your metabolism, making it easier for you to burn fat, improve your blood sugar levels. It helps you to fight cancer and reduces your risk of heart disease. The biggest reason that I got it is because it's some of the tastiest meat I've ever had, and I know that it's going to keep me healthier for longer. If you're interested, you can head to butcherbox.com/brute for a free package of bacon plus $20 off of your first order. I want to talk a little bit about masculinity and femininity because you have a few YouTube videos about it. And one in particular is called Exercise Your Masculinity. So first off, can you explain that one? You say you have to find your masculinity in your balls. What do you mean by that?
Yeah, well, For you to be a man, it's most evident in your body. And we're living in an age of deconstruction. The whole world is crumbling before our eyes. And I think it's a wonderful thing because you got to break some eggs to make an omelet. We're living at the dawn of a new age. So whatever ideas that we have about what masculinity is, it's probably false. But the one thing that we know is consistent and which is true is the physiology. There's no question. I have a penis and I have hormones that are associated with being a man. I am the pattern of a man. And so if we're wanting to get more in touch with our masculine truth, we have to get more in touch with the honoring of our body within the, and that comes with being non-judgmental about our impulses and our feelings and our emotions. So really it's about trusting ourselves. Men in particular have been taught not to trust ourselves, particularly our aggression. You know, we've been taught that our aggression is wrong. Our aggression is just an energy, and it's a matter of how it's directed. There are way too many men who deny their aggression and they end up being limp. And that you can't be generative if there's no aggressive energy in the body.
What are some ways to kind of reinvigorate yourself and re-energize yourself to regain that aggression?
Exercise is a great way. That's why I say exercise your masculinity. It's not a exercise in thought. This is the thing. This is the big trick. This is the big lie that we've been fed through our education system, that all problems will be fixed by you thinking about them. That's not the case. This is a matter of getting in touch with what's available energetically in your body. Can you, for example, can you muster up enough energy to lift this stone? So I was a professional strongman, and I've taught lots of boys how to be men by lifting stones. Now, I can talk to you about conceptions of manhood all day long, but do you have the balls? Can you muster up the energy? Can you get out of your own way to let out a primal shout, grab this stone and beast it up? When you walk away after an experience like that, I don't have to tell you what to do or how to feel as a man. It just happened in a quantum leap. And I watch it time and time again. Young men walk into my gym and in an instant, they transcend some physical limitation, you know, or some physical challenge. And in an instant, they're walking taller with their chest higher and a little bit more swag and a firmer handshake. I didn't teach you how to be a man. What I helped you do is unleash the man that's always been in you.
Love it. What about femininity? What can people do to get in touch with their femininity? And is this as important for men as it is with women?
Oh, I'd say it's more important. Our feminine aspect has everything to do with our ability to love ourselves, nurture ourselves, to have unconditional self-love and not judge ourselves in any way, shape, or form. Our feminine aspect allows us to be creative. You know, it's the yielding, or it's the opening, it's the receptiveness that allows the artist to create his art, that allows the musician to create his music, allows the spontaneity in the comedian to be so witty. He's not doing that. So you got to understand that masculine and feminine are energetic polarities. Masculine is positive and feminine is negative. And that's not to say good or bad, but one is aggressive, the other is tender. One is reaching out, like the penis, right? Your penis reaches out when you're excited. The other one opens up and invites in. So we all, according to Carl Jung, every man has a woman inside him and every woman has a man inside him. For a man, the woman inside you is the receptivity that allows you to come up with your next brilliant business idea. It allows you to have intuition and insight. These things are only available when we are tender, when we are yielding, when we are open and receptive. So one of the biggest things that men have lost in this day and age is our intuition, our connection to our heart. And it's because we're not willing to sit with our stillness, our solitude, and allow receptivity to give us the answer. Once again, we're talking about answers again. But when we can sit, our intuition, our heart gives us the answer. We're not using the head. The head is masculine. The heart is feminine. We're not using our head to figure out the problem. We're using our heart to receive the answer.
So if bringing out your masculinity and exercising your masculinity is done through getting into your body and using your body, what is bringing out your femininity? How do you do that?
Oh, it's the same thing. It's just in a different way. So for example, when you sit still, when you meditate, let me put it that way. And I'm not talking about active meditation. Active meditation brings in both polarities, and that's why I like it. And really where this conversation will ultimately lead is integration. We're not wanting to be one more than the other, or one at one time and then the other time. The whole idea is to be completely integrated. And that way we can use all of our resources at the same time. That's like what we're hoping to do, is to allow our intuition and our intellect to work in tandem to allow us to navigate our life. So sitting still, silently, sleeping is a yin activity. Qigong, like Paul taught so beautifully, he said, you have working out and you have working in. When you're working out, it's aggressive, you're pushing out. But when you're working in, it's all about breathing and slow movement and receptivity, you see? So we're wanting to be able to honor both aspects of ourselves to bring integration.
So how do you personally balance that rhythm of novelty and spontaneity with structure and aggression? Even in your relationship, how do you have the love and connection as well as the erotic and the spontaneous?
Well, I'm not totally sure what you're asking. Are you asking how I honor the masculine and feminine within my daily walk, within my daily life?
Exactly.
And that would be that I'm a fucking beast in the gym, but I also do yoga and I also meditate. I'm up at the crack of dawn and I'm going. First thing in the morning, I'm aggressive. I'm out there going, but I'm in bed by 8:30 at night.
Right.
So the daytime is masculine, and I do day real fucking hard. I don't waste my day. I'm out there I'm out there pretty hard during my day. And then when nighttime comes, I put the sword down and I let the coolness of the night to rock me to sleep, you see? So really it's a matter of honor. One of the ways is as a matter of honoring rhythms. The other one too is when I'm feeling aggressive, I'm fucking aggressive and I don't have any judgments about it. I'm not apologizing. I'm not thinking twice about it. Maybe I should be a little bit more kind or passive, or I don't know what it is that you think of yourself, but like you could have all kinds of judgments about the way you're feeling right now. But I also know there's going to be a time, probably shortly after this, where I'm ready to rest. I'm ready not to talk. I'm ready to be in solitude. I'm ready to be in my receptive mode. I can tell you that my life has shown itself this way in stages. And in fact, Robert Moore, the neo-Jungian psychologist, spoke about how there is a sovereign quality, a king quality within every man and woman, queen quality, king, warrior, magician, and lover. And every man and every woman has their sovereign and their magician, But when it comes to the warrior and to the lover, men tend to experience their warrior early in life. Like when we're 13 years old and testosterone goes up, I remember jumping off staircases, in order to impress girls, I'd throw myself off of, 2-story buildings. I was a fucking nut, going really high. I played football, and my claim to fame in high school football was that my helmet was the most torn up because I smashed people with my head. Like, I'm warrior beyond warrior. I use my head as a sword. That's why I got so many head injuries. And then at the same time, it's interesting because I met my wife, who was my girlfriend at the time, at about age 14. She was all in her, we've been dating that long. She was all in her lover. I mean, I have a 13-year-old daughter now, so it's all very much like music and boys and very soft and loving and receptive, almost too receptive. That's why I got to protect them at that age, because they're willing to open to anything because they're just in that receptive, feminine lover state. And boys are in that, aggressive, go get it, destroy it, state. And that's okay. That's fine. That's the way it should be. But there comes a time, middle age, where there is a flip flop and men are asked to put down our sword a little bit and then get in touch with our hearts. Usually they call this a midlife crisis, but it's not a crisis. It's an opportunity to evolve. And women at that time start becoming more masculine, more aggressive. And biologically or anthropologically, you know, our evolution as a race on this planet, it makes perfect sense. Because when a man is young, he's out there hunting and doing those things that only a man can do at that age. But then as time goes on and his body's not as strong as it once was, women who were once in their receptive mode, who were having babies and stuff, become grandmothers, and they become the matriarchs, and they become the protectors of the young women who are having children. So at middle age or towards the second half of life, men become what one of my teachers called me. She said, "You're becoming a male mother, Elliott, where you're nurturing and seeing the power in young men. Like I want nothing more to empower young men to be the best that they can be." Mm-hmm. Most men who can't be in their lover, who won't allow themselves that receptiveness, want to compete with young men. You know, so you got 40-year-old guys out there trying to compete with 20-year-old guys out there instead of encouraging them. I have no interest any longer in competing. I've proven myself over and over again. Now, as a male mother, as a mentor, as a nurturer, because I've gone through the experience of putting down my sword to a degree and getting in touch with my lover, I am that much better of an elder, an asset to the young men. And the same thing with women. My wife, or women that are in the second half of their life, they've got to be a little tougher because now the young women need some guidance.
Yeah, that's fascinating. I've thought over the past few years that the kind of women becoming more masculine and men becoming more feminine as they grow older is just a societal thing and not a natural process. But hearing you explain it like that completely shifts that for me, and that it's a natural and beautiful part of life rather than just something that we're being taught.
It's integration, bro. Here's the thing, though, that we live in a society that doesn't honor that. And that's why you may be thinking about it in the way you do. We live in a society where when women are supposed to be becoming more masculine, let me put it this way. When women are supposed to pick up their swords and become more warriors, they're getting fucking boobs stuffed into their chest so that they can look like they're teenagers again. And we got men who it's time to stop acting like a little boy and become a bit of a nurturer for your family and for the young men coming up who are doing all kinds of retarded things to make themselves stay young. We want to stay young. Mm-hmm. And when we do that, we disallow the natural integration and evolution that each human being is supposed to go through.
It is interesting the way that David Dietas talks about it. He's for the listeners, he wrote The Way of the Superior Man, and he talks about this sexuality, and he describes it as people just become kind of neutralized, where they're neither masculine or feminine. They're not much of either because of the societal, like the gender equality. They equate that to sexual equality. How does that compare to what you're talking about?
Well, I think that as we're evolving as a race on this planet, we are becoming a bit more androgynous because we're integrating all aspects of ourselves. These past several generations have had, I don't even want to use the word hypermasculinity in charge. It has had a pathological masculinity in charge called patriarchy. Mm-hmm. But it's fine because, it's always darkest right before the sun rises. And patriarchy is not supportive of men or women. What we're experiencing now with the return of the divine feminine, and you're seeing it all over the place with women's empowerment, and I'm not pro or con anything. I just watch with amazement that we are allowing in ourselves, Ralph Waldo Emerson says that the part of the reason why the world is broken and is disunified and lies in broken heaps is because man is disunited within himself. What we're experiencing now are men who are getting back in touch with their intuition, not becoming women. That's not the case. It's not a matter of becoming women. It's becoming integrated men who can use our heads and allow it to be guided by our hearts. We have a feminine within us that once honored makes us stronger men. Paul Chek, we spoke about earlier. As I was going into my tunnel, my middle-age tunnel, where I had to dissolve all of my preconceptions and ideas about who I was so that I can integrate, I did some coaching with Paul, like I said earlier. And him being a man in his second half of life had the wisdom to tell me, Elliott, if you're ever to become fully man, you must become a woman first. And at first I didn't understand. It took me a while to get it. But what I understand now in my experience is, Elliott, if you ever want to be completely whole, you've got to learn how to honor your heart. Honoring your heart is not a woman's thing. Let me put it that way, because masculine and feminine is, like I said, is an energy. It's not about men or women. Masculine and feminine, men and women is penis and vagina. Masculine and feminine are energies that are within both of us, just like, both of which are in all of us. I mean, just like that there's a day and night, you know, the daily experience we have isn't one of masculinity or femininity, and we don't praise one and curse the other. There's daytime and there's nighttime. There's wintertime and there's summertime. They're both, it's cyclical. It's a part of the same thing. The annual deal is that there's masculines in the spring. There's all kinds of budding and moving out and aggression. And then there's fall. There's the letting go of the leaves. There is the receptivity and the coldness of the winter. Do you see what I'm saying? The nurturing that's associated with the winter, the recovery that's associated with the winter. So what we're doing as individuals and and the planet as a whole is integrating both of these aspects into our character and our way of being.
What was the author that you referenced? Was it Robert Wood? The King, the Magician, all those.
Robert Moore.
Robert Moore. I'm gonna look that up. I'm a member of something called the Mankind Project, and that's what they teach. And I never knew where that came from.
Oh yeah, he's one of the founders of the whole movement.
Oh really? Got it. Cool. What's one of the biggest things that you've changed about the way that you train and teach people in the past couple of years?
Again, I'm more integrated. I honor all parts of myself. Dude, look, like I get it. So hopefully I'll never sound like I'm telling young men to put down their swords, because nobody carried a bigger sword than me. Like I said, I played football and I was the most aggressive motherfucker on the field, so much so that I scraped the word die in my helmet so that the guy in front of me would be shook out of his mind. Mm-hmm. I would run through a wall. And that's the way I trained. I became a professional strongman because I'm relentless and I'm brutal in my way of tacking the weights. Like I didn't lift weights. I fucking attacked weights. Watch my videos from 2010 through 2013. Like this guy is kill. That's why part of the reason why so many people are attracted to my videos, because man, I'm just like exuding that masculinity. What I have integrated over these past few years as I have evolved and grown more whole is a different type of honoring of my body when I train. I don't beat the shit out of myself. I've torn both biceps and my Achilles tendon, so I'm no stranger to injuries. But also I am very deliberate about integrating the working in aspect that I spoke about before. A day doesn't go by where I don't meditate or do yoga, you see?
Mm-hmm. So we're talking about yin and yang, masculine and feminine. What exactly does the structure of your day look like?
Well, I'll tell you, today I woke up and I went for a walk. That's what I do. That's my favorite thing to do in the mornings, is to get up at 5. By 5:30, I'm out the door and I go on a 3-mile walk, listening to some of my favorite audiobooks. Today I'm listening to the biography of Ralph Waldo Emerson called Mind on Fire. I love it. And then I have a family too. So when I come home, I'm making breakfast for the kids and taking them to school. When I get home, I immediately do my meditation and I write in my journal. Then I'll do some work, So I made like 10 videos today. Usually about this time, noon, I'll do interviews and whatnot, and communication, call people, whatever. By early Evening, late afternoon, I go and pick up my kids from school. I get home and I train. So I'll lift weights today. I'm gonna train in my backyard. I put all my weights in my backyard. So I'm gonna lift today, and then this evening after I lift, my kids have a concert at school. So I'm gonna go listen to my children sing.
Awesome. What does your journal look like? What do you do in it?
I talk to God. I talk to my God self, that part of me that loves me unconditionally. I made quite a splash by speaking positively to people through YouTube. I spoke about it before too. I have a way of transmutating things and making them what seems like something bad into something good. I remember even my earliest days, I was always the motivator, the inspirer, letting people know that they can do it. But even with all that and that natural predisposition, if I'm not mindful, the negative self-talk unconsciously creeps in. And so when I pose a question to my inner being or my God self, time after time, it just comes out as the most motivational, inspirational, affirmative advice or support that I can ever get. The best counselor I've ever had has been myself. So when I sit down to journal, it's about getting in touch with my empowerment, my truth, and that part of me that always loves me and knows that things are unfolding perfectly for me.
That's really cool. So are you literally posing a question first and then writing about it or writing to answer it from a part of yourself?
Yeah. The key to getting that spontaneous answer is to write without stopping. And it's funny because sometimes I'll approach my journal knowing the question that I'm going to ask. And this is like goes back to our original conversation. In that question, I can already feel in my stomach, I could feel in my body the answer rising, and I know it's going to be supportive. So if I'm, quote unquote struggling, which is very rare because I know the answer. I know what's needed to be resourceful. I'll write it down, and my God self immediately goes to town on how to shift perspective and to bring a resourceful spin to whatever is going on. Every single time, my inner being will never speak poorly to me. Your inner being will never speak poorly to you. If you're journaling or you're asking questions and you're honest and open and receptive and you're getting negativity, you gotta confront that negativity and ask where it's coming from. Some people would say that it's a demon.
Wow. I love that. One thing I'm really, really big on, and this is my last question, and then I've got some kind of rapid fires for you before we wrap it up. One thing I'm really, really big on is building self-awareness. I have this just craving to know myself better, and that's one of the biggest things that I teach others. And part of it is a lot of what we've already talked about, which is meditation, which is journaling, the self-discovery practices that we can do to know ourselves better. On the other side of the coin is using other people's perspectives of us to help us see blind spots in ourselves to help us grow. So in your life, who helps you notice your blind spots, and what does that look like kind of in a concrete way where they give you feedback and you use it to grow your level of awareness?
Well, every relationship we have is a mirror of our own consciousness. And the closest relationships that we have are our parents. If you want to be aware of what's going on unconsciously, spend some time with your parents. For me, my father, I spent a lot of time trying to prove myself in my early career. There was a lot of anger. My dad is an incredible person, brilliant person. I love him more so now than ever before. But as a young man, I allowed myself to be fueled by fear of not measuring up or not being good enough, and anger for any limitations or restrictions. I'm a rebel. I don't like anybody telling me what not to do, but parents have to do that. You got to tell your kids what not to do sometimes. And so I spent a good portion of my early adulthood working to prove myself to my dad. And I learned a lot about myself because of that. And I also discovered when I put my sword down and learn to love myself, because my love for my dad went up exponentially. In fact, this whole year has been uh, pivotal with a relationship with me and my father. And, make no mistake about it, every single man, hey, we all have a father. And whatever our relationship is to our father, that is our relationship to our self, to our God, to the eternal Father, to our pattern. They say that the word father, paternity, comes from the word pattern. If you can't accept your father, you can't accept the very pattern by which you express yourself in this world. So healing the wounds with the father. You're familiar with men's work and Iron John. We separate from the mother. You got to create separation from the mother, but then it's all about healing the wounds with the father. Atonement with the father is the way Joseph Campbell describes it in The Hero's Journey. Atonement with the father. And this whole year my dad and I have cried together this past year twice, which is more than ever before in our entire lives.
Uh-huh.
And it's totally indicative of the transformation that I've been through. And of course, he's a mirror reflection of that.
That's so cool. And so the way that I've always heard it is usually men, their relationship with their father is where those kind of the highest leverage work can be done. And then with women, their mom is where the highest leverage work can be done. But you're saying with everyone, it's kind of the dad.
Well, for men in particular, it's look, like the way the hero's journey goes, it's a beautiful mythological pattern archetype, and we have to create separation from our mothers first. There's no question about it that for a man to stand on his own, he needs to rid himself of the deep societal conditioning, which is starkly feminine. My dad did what he did. My dad grew up in a jungle in Belize and came to America, but he got a job and got a house and got a car and did all the societal things because, well, he had a woman and he had children, and you kind of like sign up for that when you bring women into your life. But for us to really take on our true divine pattern, we got to separate ourselves from society. And that means standing separate from women. So that's the very first one. It's always separation from the mother. And if you study the hero's journey, that's like right early in the beginning, separation from the mother. In Iron John, he says that the only way that the wild man will be let out of the cage is if you get the key from your mother. And where does the key lie? Her pillow. So you got to go and that's indicative of the dreams your mom has for you. Mommy wants little boy to be a good man in society, right? And mommy wants us to be a good husband, a good doctor or lawyer, whatever the case may be. But we really have to shed all that if we're ever going to know ourselves. So the very first thing is to know yourself outside of society. Meditation helps. Going off into the woods help. All these things that men do to find themselves. Go climb a mountain. You got to get away from society. You got to get away from your mom. That's number one. And then as the path unfolds, there's no coming home until you atone the relationship with the father. There's no knowing yourself. There's no becoming the strongest version of yourself. There's no expressing your truth if there isn't atonement or healing between you and the masculine pattern that brought you into this world.
That's fascinating, man. So I've got a few rapid fires for you and we'll wrap it up. So what book have you given most often as a gift?
As a gift? I don't know. I give all kinds of books as a gift, but my favorite book and one that I have given often is the Essential Writings of Ralph Waldo Emerson. I love his work and I go back to it all the time. So that's it.
Sweet. What's a belief that you hold that if others held would have the biggest effect on their life and or performance in general?
That the world is good and is only getting better. We live at the dawn of the age of light. We live in the age of the rising sun. We live in the age of enlightenment. We are moving into a brand new golden age. Life is good. The world is good, and it's only getting better.
Badass. What's one action that you'd recommend people take immediately?
Well, see, that would come from my own ego. The action that you need to take is the one that comes most spontaneously and true from you. Only you can take right action. The Buddhists call it right action, right? What we're wanting is not activity, and what we're not wanting is not mindless action. What we're wanting is right action. And right action has everything to do with what we were talking about before, having the heart integrated with the intellect, with the mind. So if you're wanting to take the right action, you've got to consult with your intuition first.
Awesome, man. This has been great. Thank you so much for your time, Elliott. Where can people find out about the Strength Camp and all of the things that you've got going on?
ElliottHulse.com.
Sweet, man. Thanks again for your time, brother.
Yeah, my pleasure, Michael.
This episode is finished, but your training journey continues. Head over to brutestrengthtraining.com/SSW and grab your free pack of 32 accessory workouts that you can incorporate into your training and start improving your strength immediately. That's brutestrengthtraining.com/SSW.